Welcome back to Torn Apart News, the only place on the internet where we tear the news apart bit by bit until we can finally hug all the spiders, because I'm pretty sure that there is not enough people out there who love and hug spiders.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard, and may God have mercy on your soul.
No! God, please, no! No!
Thank you for being here, and this week we're talking about Mickey Mouse because it's in the public domain, and I'm specifically talking about Mickey Mouse, aka the character from the short film Steamboat Willie. So it's not necessarily Mickey Mouse is not gonna be like the image of Disney Pictures anymore. He's not gonna disappear from the parks or anything like that. It's just that specific character design from that specific movie that now people can use however they want, and the internet has already gone quite crazy, and you can see it because there have been so many different movies announced and video games announced as well. And let's start by talking about the video games because they're horror based, of course. There is one where we have a trailer and it's called Infestation 88, and it looks really creepy and it reminds me a little bit of the gameplay of Five Nights at Freddy's. And then we have another game which is simply called Mouse, and this video game I can really sit behind, mostly because it's really borrowing the visual design of Steamboat Willie and those kind of cartoons as well.
I have a feeling this isn't over yet.
So it's kind of a homage to Mickey Mouse and not necessarily an evil desire to tarnish the brand. And honestly, if you look at the trailer, this looks quite cool and it makes me want to play it as well. And if we jump back into the movie industry, we have a movie coming out in March which is called Mickey Mouse Trap, and then we have another one which starts production this spring and it's called Steamboat Willie, and apparently the film will follow a sadistic mouse who torments a group of unsuspecting ferry passengers. I mean, if we just look at what they did with the Winnie the Pooh characters with the movie Blood and Honey last year, honestly 100% sure that these movies are not gonna be good. They're just there to almost make fun of Mickey Mouse as a character and of the whole public domain thing. It's basically just a marketing stunt. It's not because these production companies want to tell a very strong story or because they have a message to forward to the audiences. It's literally just marketing for maybe their next projects or to get as much money as possible to work on something different. And since we're talking about horror films, let's jump into the next piece of news, which is gonna be about the First Omen, which is the new movie in the Omen franchise.
You don't have to be afraid. This child is his way.
I almost forgot that this was a franchise because I only have seen the First Omen movie, which came out in 1976, directed by Richard Donner. But apparently this franchise is quite big, it has a huge fan base as well, and we have a trailer for the new addition to this franchise, which is gonna be a prequel and is coming out April 5th. I really love the design of the trailer, the fact that it's going backwards. The music by Fever Ray is just incredible, it works so well. We've seen so many different remakes and requels of these horror franchises, but this seems actually interesting, but I cannot talk as a fan, so I can't really vouch for this movie for being original or even for what it can add to the franchise. So let's go back to all the Omen films and let's have a look at where we stand with this new film. I don't know if you remember the story of the First Omen film, but basically Katie gives birth to a boy and Robert, her husband, is told that he died immediately, and the hospital chaplain Father Spiletto persuades Robert to secretly adopt another baby whose mother just died in childbirth. But Robert does not tell Katie, and the child is not their own, and his name is Damien, and he's basically the Antichrist. So this is the main sort of theme slash plot of this franchise. And fun enough, I didn't even know, but every single new movie is a sequel and it still has the same character who just keeps growing up and having new adventures. The second movie is called Damien, aka Omen 2, and it came out in 78 and it is set 7 years after, and it is starring a teenager Damien. Of course, it's not played by the same actor. Then we have the third movie in the franchise called Omen, The Final Conflict, where we have an adult Damien and he's played by Sam Neill, and it came out in 1981. And apparently only the original trilogy is actually good, because after that we have more additions to the franchise which for most fans apparently they're not canon. We have Omen 4 The Awakening, which came out in 1991, and basically a new girl is adopted by two lawyers and she's gonna succeed Damien as the Antichrist. So this is basically like a soft reboot. And then we have The Omen in 2006, which is a remake starring Julia Stiles and Liev Schreiber. I honestly don't remember anything about this movie. And apparently we also have a TV series called Just Damien, which came out in 2016, and it's a direct sequel to the original movie, and it follows a 30-year-old Damien who has forgotten his demonic past. So the first Omen is basically gonna be about reverse immaculate conception, where a member of the church in Rome basically gets pregnant out of nowhere, and guess what? It's Damien, and that is basically it. There is nothing more to add, so it sounds like a very stereotypical possession movie, but I love the design, I love the trailer, so I'm gonna keep my expectations managed for the time being. Let's head into our third piece of news and talk about a movie called The Peasants, which came out in October.
Miłość przychodzi i odchodzi, a ziemia zostaje.
So it's already out, but it's not out in Europe or in the US. It's coming out actually on January 26th. It gathered quite a lot of attention at the TIFF festival back in September, and also the Oscars are eyeing this movie for quite a lot of awards, and it's also the official movie that Poland has put out there to represent the movie production of that country for this year at the Oscars. Maybe you have no idea why I'm telling you this, but it's mostly because this is like Loving Vincent, a movie that is entirely made out of oil paintings, and it looks incredible. So I had to talk to you about it, mostly because these are the kinds of indie movies that, like, you know about them only if they win awards. Otherwise, like, the marketing budget doesn't really allow it for like a huge distribution deal. So at the end of the day, if you don't seek it out, you will not see this movie. So I had to come here and talk to you about it. Maybe you don't remember, but Loving Vincent, it's basically one of the first fully painted animated feature films, and each of the film's 65,000 frames is basically an oil painting on canvas, and it is created using the same techniques as Van Gogh by a team of 125 artists drawn from around the globe. And here we have the same directors from that movie, so Dorota Kobiela and Hugh Welchman, who came back to tell the story of a Nobel Prize winning novel, which is basically called Klopi, and this is basically going to be about a late 19th century Polish village which is a hotbed for gossip and ongoing feuds held together by pride, tradition, and a deep-rooted patriarchy. Yagna finds herself caught between the conflicting desires of the village's richest farmer, his eldest son, and other leading men of the community. At the start, I was sitting there being like, what is the purpose of making a movie like this? Especially because the other one was a biographical movie about Van Gogh, so it made sense that it looked the way that it did. But right now, it just seems like a normal drama, but actually, the reasoning behind it is quite cool, and basically the visual style is inspired by an art movement called Young Poland, and basically the book that I mentioned before, which is written, by the way, by Władysław Reymont, is part of this movement, and same goes for quite a lot of other artists that this movie is basically borrowing from. And I'm talking about people like Józef Fielmowski, Ferdynand Ruszczyk, and Leon Wyszkolowski, and this movement basically is covering roughly the years between 1890 and 1918, and it was a result of a strong aesthetic opposition to the early ideas of positivism, and it basically promotes trends of decadence, neo-romanticism, symbolism, impressionism, and Art Nouveau. I absolutely never had heard about it before, so I was sitting there being like, here we have a movie that took so much effort to make, a really interesting story, a really strong creative team, and also it is teaching us about art that I didn't hear about before. So honestly, I'm all in. Now let's jump into our bonus news and rapid fire as many news about movies and TV shows of last week as possible so you can go back to your lives.
Finally!
First, we're gonna be talking about Arcane because we finally have a first clip for the series, and it's starring Singed, the mad scientist himself. We don't really know exactly what this season is gonna be about, but I'm glad that we're still getting these weird clips because the hype needs to rise and rise and rise until it's unbearable, because that's how I like my TV shows. We got a new poster for Luca Guadagnino's new movie called Challengers, and it's coming out on April 26th. And on Twitter, people were basically discussing about how ugly this looks, and it looks like it was made by AI. As a Photoshop user and photographer and poster designer myself, I can tell you that AI would never be able to make such good work as this. Maybe you think that because the amount of noise slash grain that they added looks kind of fake. They were clearly trying to inspire themselves by posters made in the 70s slash 80s by adding the film grain and the style itself. They push it a little bit too far to the point that it looks like an illustration instead of looking like a film still. And then we've got some first images from David Cronenberg's movie The Shrouds, which is supposed to come out this year apparently, and I'm really hyped for it. Then we have a news concerning Gerard Butler, who's basically confirmed to be reprising his role as Hiccup's father in How to Train Your Dragon, the live action form. And I'm sitting here being like, are you not gonna change anything about the movie? Are you literally just gonna copy and paste even the voice actors from it into the new movie? Cut it out. Honestly, this is like the most boring thing ever, and I don't want to support it, but I thought it would be interesting for you to know.
Smell shame.
And then we have a new poster for the series Echo, which is dropping on Disney Plus tomorrow, by the way. I thought it was quite clever design because they're using sign language to spell the name of Echo. And recently we also have the Emmys Awards, and I wanted to talk specifically about The Last of Us, which won the entire night with a total of 8 awards. It won Best Guest Actor, so for Nick Offerman, Best Guest Actress as well for Storm Braid. It got Best Sound Mixing, Best Sound Editing, Best Picture Editing, Main Title Design, Prosthetic Makeup, and Special VFX. A lot of people loved this series. Me personally, what I think about it is that it should have taken a little bit more time. It was rushing a little bit from one episode to the next. Otherwise, it's perfect. Now let's add into my favorite segment of the week, which is called And For Something Weird. This segment where we talk about something weird that is related to the movie slash TV news of the week. And this week I'm talking about Christopher Nolan, and specifically about his Peloton instructor, who apparently spent quite a lot of time during one of her sessions criticizing the movie Tenet. And this was so incredibly weird, the clip went viral, and I wanted to show it to you because I was like, why? Is this how you motivate your clients?
This song is from the soundtrack of a movie called Tenet. Anybody see this shit? Did anybody see this besides me? Because I need a manual. Someone's got to explain this. Yeah, I'm not kidding. What the fuck was going on in that movie?
But anyways, that is basically it when it comes to this week on Torn Apart News. Don't forget to tune in the next few weeks. I'm gonna take a little bit of a break for the next 2 weeks on Torn Apart, just because I'm gonna be traveling and I won't be able to shoot any videos. But anyways, see you quite soon. I'm Patrick, and this is Torn Apart News.
Back in the 90s, I was in a very famous TV show. Da